is one of our founders and one of our premier companies, David Perry and Associates. David, I'm going to kick it off to you right away so that we can stay right on time.
谢谢 Paul。你好，我的名字是 Ted 大卫，新年快乐，恭喜发财。My name is David Perry. Happy Year of the Ox, and don't push my Mandarin and Cantonese much more than that. I leave that up to our creative director and, more importantly, my husband of 22 years, Alfredo Casuso, who speaks 6 languages. And within our firm, we have multiple language capabilities written and spoken. I like to say that our motto is creative communications with international connections. I've been in California for 36 years, and we were incorporated as David Perry and Associates, Inc., as an S corporation 16 years ago. We're a boutique PR agency. We have 3 full-time people on payroll, but we have 11 associates here in California. We also have colleagues in Italy, Spain, London, Copenhagen, who we can call on for international projects that may need some sort of media attention. And of course, sometimes that comes to bear. I'm a member of the board of directors of the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce, actually the chair of their small business committee, member of GGBA, the Desert Business Association, and of course, one of the founders of BuildOUT California. And I am a longtime city vendor with the City and County of San Francisco and an approved LGBT minority-owned business. Next slide. So we were doing diversity, equity, and inclusion training long before it became a thing. And I don't mean that to be facetious, but when I moved to San Francisco in 1985, 1986, the idea of being an openly gay business person was still cutting edge. And one of the things I noticed about San Francisco was the integration into the fabric of the city and business community of the not only importance, but the essential business decision to have diversity. So we have been doing that and living that for over 30 years. We offer the full range of public relations, marketing, and crisis communications services. We were doing social media again before it became something that everyone seemed to need to do. We actually did social media training for the city of San Francisco and put together a program back in the late 80s, early 2000s called New Media Made Easy. Of course, now it's not new, it just is. And then we do video production and spokesperson training. One of the things I do like to point out is we have an award-winning FAA certified quadcopter, AKA drone specialist, Beto Lopez. And if you've seen some of the iconic aerial shots of San Francisco City Hall or Bat Kid or the port or things in Richmond, California, which we represented, 9 times out of 10, that was done by our quadcopter. And I say this to people, especially in the construction and real estate field, they say, well, I've got a guy who has a drone, or I've got a guy who has a quadcopter, to which I say, unless they are FAA certified and trained, and that FAA certification is up to date, and especially the security people in whatever jurisdiction you're working know this quadcopter person, they will get pulled down and you will get fined. So I offer that because everyone says they have a drone, but we've got a real one and he's award winning. Next slide, please. Please do go to our website, davidperry.com, and you can see our current list of clients. But something I wanted to highlight for you, Hathaway Dinwiddie Construction, we do consulting with a few of their executives. Kilroy Realty, we represented last year, specifically when they were partnering with the Olympic sailing team to promote that, and also helping promote the sales center for Oyster Point and also the Flower Mart project. Skywalker Properties, we still work with, and of course, for 6 years, I was George Lucas's personal spokesperson and did the initial writing and marketing on the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. And although I have to be a little bit provincial in saying that we wished it had been in San Francisco on Treasure Island or in the Presidio, we are thrilled that it is still in California and look forward to walking through those doors in Los Angeles in about 2 years. We represent the Hotel Council of San Francisco and the Union Square Business Improvement District, also the National Association of Corporate Directors, and we have worked with 7 mayoral administrations of San Francisco, and I'm proud to say, including the current one, Mayor London N. Breed. Next slide, please. So one of the projects that I'm proudest of, and it was great to be here with a colleague who's also working on this, is George Lucas's Museum of Narrative Art. As I say, I was the lead PR person and spokesperson for the project for what is the largest private gift of philanthropy in US history. I have loved working on large-scale construction projects ever since I was the first communications and then communications and marketing director for Yerba Buena Center for the Arts back in 1993. As I'm sure all of you know, there is nothing more irritating or exciting than dealing with a PR person who wants to do a press tour while you all are doing a punch list. So I've had great experience with working with, from drawings to in the ground to out of the ground, large scale construction projects. And there is no larger one at the moment than the George Lucas Museum of Narrative Art in Los Angeles. Next slide, please. One of the projects that I'm proudest of took place in 2008, but it led to a specialty for us, and that is working with large-scale civic projects that demand someone who can not only do branding, media relations, public relations, but also on-site crisis PR. And in 2008, the Olympic torch, on its way around the world through Beijing, came through San Francisco, the only city in the United States to host the torch, and I can also proudly say the only city that did a successful torch run. We conceptualized the campaign for the mayor's office, also for the committee called Sustainable Journey, emphasizing the sustainable journey of the Olympic torch across the years, and also San Francisco's reputation as a city committed to sustainable building practices. So for 6 months, we worked on the campaign, including many meetings with the Olympic Committee, the Chinese ambassador, and then the day of the torch, I became the spokesperson on international TV. My brother-in-law actually saw me on a Jumbotron in Jakarta. So it got a lot of international attention. But projects that this led to were, for instance, the America's Cup, where we were the community affairs lead, the Super Bowl 50 campaign just 5 years ago, which I was the community affairs lead on, and projects like the international rugby competition that came to San Francisco a couple of years ago. And we're hopeful that in the coming years, San Francisco will continue as the center of an incredible sports area to host other large projects like that. We can also do this throughout California and provide any sort of counsel for public affairs any way you need. Next slide, please. The last project that I wanted to highlight before I turn it over to Q&A is a pro bono project we did last year. And of course, I don't have to tell anyone what 2020 did to all of our business models. But early on in March, when we were all seeing just the horrifying numbers of infections and deaths, we were asked to put together a campaign to salute our frontline workers. And we came up with a campaign working with California Chief of Protocol Charlotte Schultz called Sing Out SF. And the idea was to get people all over San Francisco, and my concept was around the world, to sing I Left My Heart in San Francisco on their balconies and their yards, because we could not come together physically. We did the entire thing, conception, production, PR, and it was the first project, I'm proud to say, that we've ever represented that trended on Twitter. And it, of course, then became one of the projects highlighted in international media as an example of how the United States, and specifically San Francisco, responded to COVID. I do also mention this because over the last year, I have sat in on dozens, if not hundreds of meetings with whether it was the Chamber of Commerce, the Desert Business Association, Main Street Palm Springs, relationships with the Los Angeles Mayor's Office about how the business community is reacting to COVID. So if you need a spokesperson or a firm that understands how to communicate the constantly shifting universe, which is COVID protocols, including health and safety, we are the people I hope you will consider. Next slide, please. So I always like to say that my business model is work with people smarter than you. They make you look good. And this is our key team here. In the case of my husband, Alfredo, I married someone smarter than me, so I definitely married up. These are the most talented and diverse people in the public relations and creative field I know. I have worked with all of them for many years. Our staff turnover in Knockwood is almost non-existent. So what I like to say is my job is to create dialogue fearlessly. And what I also say is the advice of my grandmother who raised me, the most important thing, son, is to enjoy your work. So when people say, who are our clients? I say people whose businesses that I support and like and know that we can help. Thank you for this time.
Great, David. I'm going to jump in so we can keep on time. So two things. One is community engagement can sometimes be a really messy business because of the contention and issues, specifically in entitlement projects and so forth. So would you say that's really one of your specialties?
Absolutely. I was a journalist for many years before I went into public relations, and I know what journalists are looking for when they cover something. And journalists always want to find the negative in any sort of public affairs campaign. So whether I'm standing in front of a group of journalists who are looking for a difficult angle to a story, or sometimes in front of a community group that wants to understand, for instance, why can't I park because Super Bowl 50 is coming to my neighborhood? I like to think that if we don't have the answers right in front of us, we can get the answers and respond in a way that is not angry, but factual and calm.
So would you say relationships are king? And in fact, with you doing business throughout California, are you strong in Los Angeles, San Diego, and throughout the state, or primarily San Francisco and Palm Springs?
No, throughout the state, Southern California. The last pre-COVID event we did actually was attend the groundbreaking for a project that Kilroy is under construction now with in San Diego. So we have capacities for public relations and public affairs throughout the state of California. Currently, I'm right now in Palm Springs. I was in San Francisco just this past weekend, and I'll be back later this month.
And if I'm kind of putting myself in the chair of a procurement executive, do you do media training, sharing with people tips and tricks on how to deal with the media as somebody sitting up behind the camera?
Absolutely. So we do full service media training, both on camera, on Zoom, how to have better Zoom presentations, which of course has become a thing. I was the host and creator of 10% TV, the longest running LGBT TV show in California history. So I have experience both in front and behind the camera. We love doing media trainings, and it's something that more and more is becoming important because pre-COVID, maybe we would do 4 meetings a day. Now with Zoom, sometimes maybe we all have 7 meetings a day. And being able to train our clients how to present themselves fully and in the best possible light is something we specialize in. I also see a question in the chat, any experience in launching and managing podcasts? The answer is yes. We currently have a podcast called Ahoy, which is a series I do specifically online. So we produce podcasts and we can train people how to do them as well.
And David, do you have the full services? So you would actually do pre-production, production, and post-production for podcasts?
That is correct.
Okay, so with that, can you just give your 30-second wrap?
As I said, our job is creating dialogue fearlessly. And as Khalil Gibran said, if you do not enjoy your work, it is better that you sit at the gates of the temple and take alms from those who work with joy. And I like to say that we work with joy and we only work with companies that we like. So I hope you'll call us at David Perry & Associates Inc., davidperry.com.